Check. Mic check. Microphone check. 1, 2. Mic check. One, two, mic check. Microphone check. 1, 2. Mic check. Is that other one coming out? Mic check. 1, 2. I know. Oops. Check 1, 2. Mic check 1, 2.
We are EVAC. We are here from Weatherford, Oklahoma. I'm from this area. This is Kent Foster. He's our paramedic. This is Mike Thomason. He is our pilot. I'm Cheyenne Mitchell. My last name's Pack. That's my mom in the crowd. Say go Miss Pack. We really appreciate you all having us out today to get to show off our aircraft and for you guys to get to ask us all kinds of questions. Do you want to go ahead and start having students come down? We're going to just kind of get everybody circulated through, get to see the aircraft up close, and then I'll tell you a little bit about what we do while you're doing that and answer some questions. I'll just tell you a little bit about what we do. We are a medical transport service. It's kind of like an intensive care unit that flies in the sky. We go to hospitals and do transfers, and then we also go to scene flights. So if there's car crashes out here, somebody had a heart attack or a stroke, we can land almost anywhere, just like we did here. will come to the scene and get you access to whatever facilities you need immediately. So that's one of the most common things we do. And then we also provide transfers in between hospitals. Sometimes, like a ground ambulance can serve that same purpose, but we offer a lot more higher critical care skills. So I'm a nurse. I've been a nurse for 7 years now. I went to Gracemont schools, and then I went to SWASU. Then I started my career as a nurse. I got enough experience, and I was able to begin this path. This was always my dream job. When I was a little kid, I wanted to do this. So Kent, our paramedic, I'll just tell you a little bit about his background while he's talking to everybody. He's been a ground medic for 15 years, I think. And he did some transports, he was in management, and then he kind of got to this stage. How long has he? I think he's been here about a year now. He's coming up on a year. I've been a flight nurse for about 2 years. You want to tell a little bit about your background as a pilot?
How's everybody doing today? The most fun part about this whole deal is my job, not theirs. Because I get to get up there and fly the helicopter and see the world through the big old windshield there. Where in the back, they don't get to see the other side window. But my experience is, I'm a little older than most of you, so but I started flying in 1987. I don't think anybody here was born then, student-wise at least. 1987 in the military in the National Guard down in Oklahoma. I've flown everything from little helicopters like this all the way up to Black Hawk helicopters. So, and I've flown a number of years around here. Got plenty of experience in taking these fine medics and nurses into LZs kind of like this in tight locations. So it doesn't bother me at all, day, night, anything. We can do it all. So that's kind of my experience. Just got a lot of flight time. In my position, to get hired in the EMS field, you have to have basically at least 2,000 hours of flight time to get hired in any EMS industry in Oklahoma. And if you think about that, you say 2,000 hours. Well, every hour you spend in classroom is an hour. So every hour we spend in the aircraft is an hour. So they equal out. It's not like we can divide that in half and call it good. So I've spent now I think I'm probably a little over 3,000 hours in the seat of a helicopter. So I got a little bit of experience, but enjoy doing it. Enjoy being out here for you guys and girls and letting you see the aircraft, and we'll go have some fun. I'll answer any questions if anybody's got any. Yeah. Okay. What you want me to tell you about this aircraft that's compared to the bigger ones? Number one is the room inside the aircraft, like the Black Hawks, if you've seen those. That thing, it's got a lot of room inside, and it's got a lot of power. We can do things with the Black Hawk that this one can't even think about doing. But this one, for our purposes of what we do, is got plenty of power and plenty of distance that we can go. We have to stop and refuel more than a Black Hawk would, but it gets us anywhere we need to go within our local flying area to be able to handle patients. This one is, like I said, basically you can see it's not anywhere as big as the Black Hawk, but it'll do what we need to do and more. So we enjoy it. It's not bad. It's like a little Ferrari inside when you're flying it. A little nimble kind of aircraft, but it's a nice one. Anybody got any questions about anything? No? I love you. Hey, there we go. So, okay, well, I'll turn it back over to Cheyenne. If you think of any questions, I'll be here with it, and just come up and ask me. Okay?
Like Mike said, our pilots have to go through a ton of training, and they also have a lot of experience before they even come to this point. So he's already had several thousand hours in different aircraft frames. And this is a really quick, small aircraft. You'll see once you get down here. The medic and the nurse, we sit... Here, Mike, be my example. Stand next to me. We sit about this far apart, so you get in pretty close quarters, and you have to do a lot in a very small area, so it's something you kind of have to adapt to. As a nurse, I've been used to the ER and the ICU where I have countertops and IV lines, anything I can walk around the patient, do what I need to. But in the aircraft, it's a little bit different. Here, let me stand on the other side of you now. Normally the nurse sits on the right side like this, the medic sits on that side. Our patients will lay right in front of there. You'll see as you'll get down there. It's very compact. The medic has more of the airway expertise that they come to this field with. So if a patient becomes unconscious or their lungs are so sick that they can't breathe, at that point we have to help breathe for them. So that's where the medic comes in. They can get that access a lot better than the nurse can. And then on the same side, it's kind of why we come as a team, is because nurses have their own side of their expertise in different areas. So as we're working with patients in this area, you have to be really smart about how you want to maneuver around them, what you want to do with them. We also carry blood. That's something that a ground ambulance doesn't normally do, and that may not seem very different. You might think, well, that's just another medication. And it is, but you have to have a higher level of skill to administer it. So that's one way that we can provide access to patients, especially trauma patients. If they're losing blood, then we can administer that really quickly and get them to the trauma center where they might have a surgery or whatever it is to fix that issue. So that's another thing that's kind of special about what we do. We also administer complicated medications that are infused. We make a lot of different decisions. We do a lot of different skills trauma-wise as well. I'd love to take any questions if I could get somebody. If anybody has a question about how we got to this point, what we do, the pilot, aircraft. Yes. So when I was in high school, it didn't start here, but this was a really good story. My mom and my dad and I were in a really critical wreck just north of here across from the casino. And my dad ended up being air flighted out. And that was one time when I really kind of consolidated the decision that I wanted to be there and help other people at that moment whenever they really need it. It was a pretty scary time, but it was interesting. It definitely kind of solidified that decision for me. My dad's a paramedic, my mom's a teacher, obviously. So for me to be in this role and get to do this medicine, and we also do a lot of extra teaching, kind of combines both of those. What made you want to do air medicine?
For me, I enjoyed flying since I was, well, I was not actually flying, but I enjoyed aviation, airplanes, helicopters since I was a small kid, about 7 or 8. I went out to an airport one time when I was real young, and it got like what they call a nickel ride, and it just blossomed from there. I just wanted to fly. So as I grew up, I didn't really fly until I got out of high school, which I kind of look back going now, I wish I would have started earlier to build my time that I needed to build to get into this industry. But anyway, I went ahead and joined the military and got to go to flight school. It's just awesome having your hands on it. Those of you that drive cars and stuff, kind of what it's like when you first start driving. For me, it's that way every day. Every time I get in a helicopter, I just enjoy flying the thing. It just makes me feel good to fly it. And I did all that in the military, and then when I got out, I missed it. I was out flying for about 10 years, and then I've had some people, about 11 years ago, ask me to come back flying in the EMS industry, and so I did, and here I am, and I can't enjoy it any more than I do. I mean, like we talk about in the helicopter a lot of times, we'll be flying on days like this. The nice views you get out here while you're flying at low level, pretty much 1,000 feet above the ground, and you get paid to do it. It's just phenomenal. So those that might think they want to go into flying, please give it a try. It is a blast.
We go to a new hire orientation, and they kind of offer a theme there that's your dream job. And then all throughout after you leave orientation, that's a theme that's carried through with all of us. And we all kind of joke with each other, #dream job, because it really is. We get out here and we get to be in, it's not always beautiful like this. Sometimes we just did a flight a couple weeks ago, even though it's already March, in the slick ice and cold, and we are out in the elements, but it's still a dream. Even though we get out here, we get to really make a difference, and it feels great. What about another question? Yes? like how much do we need to land? Oh, the fuel. Okay, so what we call top off is about 600 pounds of fuel. We burn 4 pounds of fuel a minute. So our aircraft is a lot smaller than some of the other ones. If we were going to fly from where we're at right now to the city, and then we go back to Weatherford, that's a good time right then for us to get more fuel. So what we have is a Bell 206 L3 Plus. So that's just another. Bell is a brand that has been around since the Vietnam War, so it's a very consistent, very reliable aircraft. It is a single engine, so whenever you compare, there's other bases around us that have other larger aircraft that can fly a lot further. He's a EC-130 pilot. That's his baby, but he still comes and flies our Bell with us. So the EC is a single engine, and it has 4 rotors. Still two. And it can go a lot farther, so like Woodward has one, right? Elk City.
Elk City has that's the only ones in the state that we have. And the thing of difference is, inside an EC-130, if you ever notice, if you ever get a chance to look at one, it's got a lot more room in there for these folks to operate and do what they need to do. I flew one time, went up to a sea flight in Sealy, and my medic ended up putting a chest tube in the patient while we were flying down to Kingfisher. So in here, they can't do that. I'm sure they could, but it's going to be really messy, and it's tight in there for them to get things like that done. But they can pretty much do anything they need to do in here that an ER can do. So, it's one advantage of that. But the EC-130s are bigger inside, and they have a bigger fuel tank, so we can go longer distance with it. And they don't go quite that much faster, but it is a little bit faster. Top speed on this one is about 110, 115 knots, which is about 130 mile an hour if you think about it that way. On a good day, we came back from on a flight here the other day, and I was doing like 85 mile per hour ground speed, going from O'Keene to Oklahoma City. With the headwind, it doesn't go that fast. Tailwind, it'll go pretty fast. But it's a reliable helicopter. Like you said, these helicopters have been around for a long time. So the only thing that limits us, basically, is patient weight. We sit, like she said, we sit on our pad up there with 600 pounds of fuel, and we burn 4 pounds a minute. But we can go anywhere in our local flying area to the city and back before we really actually need to refuel. We have made it from here to Elk City to Grove, Oklahoma, without having to refuel, and that's across the state, halfway across the state. But you can go a long distance, but some of the other aircraft can go even further.
And something else that does limit us some is our oxygen carrying capacity. So we have one large tank that's about as tall as I am. It's about this round, and that's what sits right behind our heads there. So some patients who are taking just a little bit of oxygen, that's fine. We can make just about any transport. But we do a lot of calculations prior to each flight. We do our fuel calculations. So like if we were here right now and they called us to go, let's say, back to Weatherford, and then maybe it's a transfer all the way to Kansas City. That would definitely be a flight that we would have to take into consideration our oxygen and our fuel. Where could we stop in there to get more fuel? And then also, how much oxygen are we expecting for this patient to consume? How much are we expecting to administer? Or how much is the very most they could take? So how we do that, I'll tell you guys right now, I am not a math person. I struggled all through school, and every nursing test, I was just like barely getting it. Like, okay, I got this. And that's one thing I want to encourage you all, just to persevere and to keep at it, because now we still do these math calculations, and it's hard, but you still got to just keep on. So each flight, I still have stuck with math. Got to do that math calculation. But we try to figure out, BiPAP is one option, one way that patients can consume the most amount of oxygen. So during the winter, a lot of patients with breathing problems will be on BiPAP. If you're breathing fully for a patient, then they actually take less using a ventilator, because BiPAP is a mask that forces air down into the lungs. So We have to try to figure that out, try to see if we can actually make that. And then we can also stop some places. So like if we're going to go from here to Kansas, we could stop partway, like Kingfisher is a base. We can refill oxygen there as well. Any other questions? Anybody want to be a nurse or a paramedic or a pilot? No? Aww. Or a math teacher. Yes. Any pilots? Anybody interested? There we go. Cool. Anybody interested in medicine at all? Maybe. Awesome. All right. You ready for some more students? Seniors. Seniors are almost done. So I had a question about if we fly in the rain or the snow. So that question's a little bit more complicated. We can fly in the rain. What we cannot fly in is lightning. We do sometimes. One of my first thunderstorms that I flew home in, I remember seeing lightning like on the horizon, and I was like, hey guys, how far is that? Because I'm not trained in weather. I'm not a meteorologist. I'm not trained in anything pilot. I don't fly at all. They do start to give us an introduction, but it's just an introduction. So my first time home, I was seeing this, and I was like, how far? And they're like, oh, it's only a couple miles. I'm like, that seems too close. A couple miles is too close. We're flying Pepsi can basically through the sky. So we can fly. I'm not sure what the exact rules are with that, with the lightning. But we do fly in rain if we have to. One difference in between helicopters is that we fly by visual field. So he has to be able to see what he is flying through. He cannot fly through the clouds. What was that basketball player? Who knows? Kobe. Y'all know Kobe, right? I know. His aircraft, his helicopter, was an instrument-flown helicopter. So they have to be able to fly by instruments, and they have to be able to read. So the situation there is that if you have like your, I started saying vestibular approach, right? Like you have to be able to feel what you're doing. So if you're taking a nap in the car and all of a sudden somebody slams on the brakes, you feel that, right? So that's where sometimes, for pilots, it's a very fine line of they have to be able to see because their mind can make them feel like they're tilting into a mountain, like Kobe Bryant, and they don't just trust their instruments. So our aircraft is licensed only for visual. So I say all that compared to weather because we cannot fly in the clouds. Now these clouds that you see, they're really high. We're not going to fly up anything like that. We're talking about a cloudy day with really low clearance or fog. So fog also, like if we were flying one day on a foggy day, you'd see right here across the Washita River, some clouds kind of forming over there. So that's another way that they plan their weather routes, is to avoid places where fog is building up over there, because we do not fly. It's an emergent event if we were to fly the clouds and to lose our visual field. So that's one thing. We do have our snow baffles still on, so we can fly in the snow just the same as the rain, and it helps to, I'll let you take this one.
Basically what she's talking about is and we don't have them on. We just took them off today because hopefully we don't have any more snow this year. But if we get out there and get caught in some weather where it is snowing a little bit, what can happen is that snow enters the intake of the engine, and due to the cold temperatures, it can freeze up in there and limit your intake of fresh air into the engine, which can starve it of air, and basically the engine will, what we call, fod out, and the engine will quit. And we don't want that, because then you come down like a greased rock. It just fall out of the sky. We can work with that. It's not a big deal, an emergency deal, but that's the reason you don't really want to fly in any kind of freezing weather, because it could cause the engine to quit on us.
We only have one, so we've got to take care of it. Any other questions? Yeah, y'all are quiet. No? Do we have Wi-Fi? Yes. We actually just got Wi-Fi. I think it's 2022. We should have had it already. Other bases did. We just got it. We also have our tracking system in the front that alerts. We have a dispatch center that's located in St. Louis, Missouri. And they control all our whole company, so we call back and forth to them. They'll tell us every 15 minutes, hey, you're positive SkyTrack, meaning we see you, we know where you're at. If we were to have some type of situation that was an emergency, then it'll trigger it to where they are now tracking us how often? Every 5 minutes, so they can make sure and see where we're going until we can get to a safe area and land. Alright, sorry about that. Alright, so his question was, how long does it take normally for somebody to become a nurse or medic or a pilot? So I'll start on the medical side first. For nurses, we require, I think, 3 years of critical care experience. That's ER or ICU. You can become a nurse in 2 years total. If you do a strict RN program like Redlands offers, you can do a 4-year bachelor's program, which opens up more opportunities. You can build on that. But we would take a 2-year program after high school, and then plus the 3 years of experience. So at minimum 5, I got my bachelor's at SWASU, and then I did 4 years of experience before coming here. So I'm actually just now coming up on my 7th year as a nurse. Medics, you can do different programs. You can get your associate's degree. That's a 2-year program. They also offer I think you have to become your basic in Oklahoma first, and that takes about 5 months about. It depends kind of on the program. And then you can start your paramedicine pathway, and that's about 18 months. So right around 2 years to become a paramedic, and then they all are also required to have 3 years of critical care experience, because you really need to know how to be a nurse or a medic, and then before you have to come here, because whenever you come here, it's a whole different ballgame of trying to figure out, how do I do it now? And then I also, for nurses, you expand your scope of practice as well. So you add a lot of different skills. Like, for instance, I don't know if we're can't tell you about what we do, but sometimes what we do is kind of gory. So one thing that we do is we intubate. And that would, like I kind of talked about, if somebody has a head injury and they're not able to breathe, or their lungs are so sick their lungs can't actually expand and breathe for them. So we put a tube in their mouth, down into their lungs, and that's a very advanced skills that paramedics are advanced in, and that's something that we kind of just start in with, trying to figure out how to do that. So that's one of the skills that we do. You tell them about pilot.
As far as the pilots, for those of you that aspiring and want to be a pilot, it's you can do it one of 2 different ways. Whether you got money or whether you don't, you can still do it. I didn't, of course, so I joined the military and got all of my pilot training for free. It cost me time. It got 9 months in the military when I went to flight school to get through all of it, graduate, and get, like they tell you in flight school, they teach you the book way of flying a helicopter. when you get out to a unit that you're going to, they teach you how to fly the helicopter, i.e. if you have to go into combat or anything like that, they teach you that style of flying so you can know how to do it, coming and landing in fields and places like this. So it's not hard, but it does take a little time to get through that. If you go through, and the cheapest thing to get a pilot's license is do an airplane first, and then go get a helicopter add-on. Because helicopter flying is really, really expensive. To fly something like this is going to run you about close to $1,000 an hour to learn how to fly it. And to get your pilot's license on them, if you were to just start off with this and money was unlimited, it would take you probably about $70,000 to get your license to fly one of these. So back to the military portion, to come out in the military out of flight school with about 200 hours of flight time, like I said earlier, to get this job, you got to have 2,000 hours of flight time. So you do a lot of flying in the military, doing a lot of different stuff, gaining a lot of experience. And I've had a lot of the medical crew tell me over a period of time that they kind of trust military pilots more than they do civilian pilots, because the civilian pilots that go through and get their license don't have the training that we get going into little confined areas and landing with a bunch of trees around you at night under night vision goggles. Juniors, come on down. You've been selected. So it takes a while to get all that training down so you can get comfortable in doing it. And doing, like I said, doing this at night under night vision goggles going to land the field, you have to really know what you're doing. Because you can't fly this thing and fly night vision goggles. You can't think about it. It has to be instinctive to be able to do it. So, but yeah, it takes a while to do it. So you can do it one of two ways, in the military or civilian side. Depends on how much money you want to spend.
Another thing I want to touch on just real quick is the safety, because I think one thing that most people think of is, wow, that's a dangerous job. And it is. It really is. There's a really high level of danger whenever it comes to getting into this thing every time. So that's one reason you'll see us whenever we lift. What we'll do is the pilot will be in the aircraft, and then the nurse and the medical stand outside at the nose. And we're watching for different safety hazards. We're watching our tail rotor, make sure that there's no awkward movement that's happening. It kind of is appearing to start up, but it's not normally does. It sounds okay. And then we'll begin our walk around after he's started up and our rotors are turning. And that's just another moment where we're checking, doing one last check, checking sure all of our aft compartment is closed, everything's buckled, all of our little latches are the same way. We have little notches, so we go check. So you'll see us kind of check, make sure all the doors are closed. Our front, the little point off the front is called the pitot point. We'll make sure that that's all, the battery is secured there, and finish our walk around. About 10 years ago, there was a lot of issues across our state and other states with helicopter crashes. And that was one thing that our company really stepped up, and they made a decision to say, we're going to be better. We really want to raise the standards, and we really want to protect our crews and our pilots, and we're going to, they started implementing all these different things about how we check our engine more often, and we go do full checks through everything. We take weather very seriously as well at EVAC, and so when I talked about the weather and how we don't fly in certain conditions, that's one thing that we are not pressured. We want to provide access. That's why we're all in this job. We want to be able to be there when the calling's there. If somebody has an emergency, and in Western Oklahoma, there's such a big need for that, because there's hospitals out there that don't have the resources to care for whatever that situation is. So we really do desire to go make these flights, but we do have to, before we're given information, they'll give us the location, and our pilot does the initial weather check, and our company backs us up on that 100%. And it's another thing that is really nice about EVAC is that they really take it seriously. If we have weather minimums about how low the clouds can be during the day, and then they have to be higher at night, so it's safer even more at night. We do have to have to land at a scene. So like if we would consider this a scene, it's not a hospital secured helipad. So our LZ, or our landing zone, has to be 50 by 50 during the day and 100 by 100 feet at night. So that's another thing that they really require, that we have a safe landing zone, and that people won't be around it. There's trees. We look for highline poles. The number one danger that we face, what do you guys think it is? Any guesses? Birds. That's a big one. That definitely, because during migration season, there are a lot of bird strikes. I had one bird strike when I was in EC 130 flying. It was a little bird, but it's still crafted. It was still scary because it's loud whenever it hits. So we do take that seriously as well. The number one thing that we deal with are wires, because they're so small. So you'll see on the front of our helicopter, there's like a little horn. Can you kind of see that? Also underneath, there's another one right below. It's blue painted as well, so it might be hard to see, but once you get up close. And so what those are wire cutters. So if you were flying in and there's something, it's so hard to see. And he mentioned that we do wear night vision goggles at night. They're such a high quality that they're FBI regulated. I think that's kind of an interesting thing because they're really high quality. So the FBI makes sure that we have it double locked if we're not with us, and they have to be inspected regularly. So that is one thing that we carry. We carry 2 sets. Not every company does that, but our whole company carries. The pilot will have them at the ready where they can pull them down, and then whoever's sitting on the left side, the nurse or the medic, will also have it. So that kind of helps us to avoid any wires as we're coming down. And y'all saw us whenever we first came in, we made one large recon, and then he could already see, so we made we didn't do our low recon here, but we came in at a hover, and it's, you hear our pilots say, it's excruciatingly slow, our approach. And they do that because they take safety at the utmost importance, which, after I talked about the dangers, I had to calm my mom down and be like, hold up. So that's another thing that they do. You can see just how slow we come in, and we'll also leave really slowly. So after they have these careers as military pilots, they can do all these great maneuvers, then they get to come here and just chill, and they just fly smooth and steady and calm. Except for that one night, we did have some really high wind one night. I had to pull my mic away from my helmet so that I wouldn't say, Mike, what is this? Sometimes the wind in Western Oklahoma really gets people, especially if we have workovers that come in. They'll say, just about a guy yesterday, he came over and he was like, I'm so tired. Because being an aircraft really is the vibrations. It adds a lot of physical fatigue to you as well. And then the Oklahoma wind, that's it. Any more questions? That I was talking about how if we go into a double IMC event, which is going into the clouds, so where that button is and how you can trigger it. So if there was an emergency, then you can trigger that button and it signals for them to track us a little bit more often. Check. It's kind of on. So it's good. Okay. So one thing is that we never have planned events. Getting to come out and fly like this today is a really big treat for us because we get to plan ahead, eat some lunch, and say, okay, we're going to get up the skids, 10 till, we'll head there, have a look out the window, enjoy the flight time, and don't have to do any charting. That's another thing, is that there's a lot of extensive charting that we have to do as well. On a normal day, though, we will drop tones. I'm going to have them set off some practice tones here for a second. You got it? Yeah. You can show it to them, probably. Will you toss the call for the So we'll just be sitting there hanging out during a shift, and we'll hear the tones go off. Most of us usually have our boots off and our house shoes or something like that, watching TV, maybe cooking supper together, maybe still working on the chart from the time before. So at that time, we have our goal 10 minutes from when those tones drop to get in the air, because the whole point is that the seconds matter. So we're really get to where we need as soon as possible, because if it's a stroke or a severe, then that time is that person's muscle, their brain, or their heart, and it's doing damage at that time. So our goal is to be up in the air by 10 minutes. Sometimes that means us getting up in the middle of the night. For me, it's putting in my contacts really quickly, and we have to grab our blood out of the fridge, grab our stuff. He does his quick weather check, and then we're jumping in the air and heading to wherever we need to go. So we're going to set off some test tones here. He just called our dispatch so you can kind of see what it sounds like. And this is what always kind of gets all of our adrenaline like triggered, like, oh, we got a call, let's go. They also do it at 8 in the morning because that's what time we do shift change. So we'll all be sitting there getting ready to do our morning safety brief, and they'll set off test tones, and we're all like, oh wait, it's just test tones. Every morning. Which is good because we're testing our system and our adrenaline response.
Stop. I'm tired of being abused.
Some of the medical equipment that we carry is a monitor that measures all the vital signs, your blood pressure, your heart rate, SpO2, that we can also measure Untitled, which is how much you're breathing out. Sorry. So we have our monitor, we also have our ventilator that can breathe using the CPAP, BiPAP, or full ventilator mode. We carry a lot of different things that we can do skills with. We can start at IVs. We carry 2 different units of blood. Sophomores? We also carry a lot of pain medicine for patients too. That is more highly controlled with our company than anywhere else you work at too. We each carry a key. I carry some narcotic keys for all of our high controlled pain medication. And then also our medic, I think he carries his on his shoulder. You'll kind of see that out there. And it's a way to make sure that we cross-check our medication. We have a lower amount of errors because of that. Every time that we give a medication, we're working as a team to do any skills or making any patient decisions. How about any other questions? Yeah. Do what? Oh no. No, I've spent all the years in school and I'm going to spend. Yeah. That's all I can do. There's a lot to that. I can't even learn some of the stuff that they try to teach me. I'll sit there and I'll say, no. What is that thing again? Just saying it's a lot to learn. Everybody has their path. Everyone has their own street. Yes. Yes. Oh, I love it. So, I would love to. In the EC-130s, it's all open. It's a big bubble. And then where the patient litter is, you can kind of scoot down. So we had to go out to Elk City one time to fly. And my partner had already been pretty comfortable with that aircraft, and I'd never been in one. And it was our first time out there. He was still an orientee, and I was precepting him. And I'd start an IV on this girl, and I'm afraid of heights, guys. Like, very afraid of heights. Like, did you not be surprised? Yes, yes, I don't like, I like to climb and stuff, but then, once you look down. So, you have to be really physical in the aircraft too, because there's not a lot of room even in these. So I was squatted down, getting ready to start an IV, holding onto this girl's arm, and my partner says over there, he's like, hey, don't forget that lever back there opens the door. I was like, what do you mean? He was like, yeah, that opens, so just don't lean on it. And so I start shaking, even though I've started 1,000 IVs in my life, I was like, oh my gosh, just don't lean back. Just don't lean back. So that was quite an experience, but you have a pretty view, but at a cost. You have to also look out that view. Yeah, the best view. Somebody talked about bird strikes. Our aircraft actually suffered a really major bird strike about 4 or 5 years ago. It was like in the winter. One of our pilots was flying over by Clinton Hospital, and it was a big goose, wasn't it? Some type of it entered into the airframe. He tried to dodge it. It was at night. He did have his night vision goggles down. The medic in the back also was hit in the face, so they had a cut on his forehead. But to hear him tell the story, he tells it very casually, but it was a very intense situation. It was really scary because it was now the bird came through the airframe, or through the bubble across there, and was down at his feet, and he said it still didn't die. It was still pecking at his legs. And so he's like trying to, as you fly the aircraft, you have your, oh, this is for you too. Okay, you have your cyclic here that you, here.
Okay, you have the cyclic and the collective, and then the pedals. Okay, the cyclic, and I tell people in the layman's terms to make you be easier to understand. The collective over here on the left side, it's kind of like your gas pedal on a car. You pull it up, and it will give you more power to the engine. You push it down, it takes some of the power away. And I tell people like this: you pull up on this lever, makes the houses get smaller. You push down, it makes them get bigger. Because you're going to go up, you pull up, and come down when you push down on it. The cyclic up here, that's just your steering. You can go forward with it, you go back, or left or right with it. And due to centrifugal force, the blades turn one way, and if you're up off the ground, the body wants to spin the other way. That's just the way it's built. So the pedals aren't really like an airplane. They don't help you turn as much unless it's a steep turn. They just keep you going straight because that body wants to turn, so you just have to keep the body of the aircraft going straight with the pedals. So it's a coordinated effort to fly one of them, but you get used to it. I fly them now. I don't even think about what I'm doing because I've done it so long. But if anybody ever rides a motorcycle, you kind of get the sense of what it's like to fly one of these because on a motorcycle, all four extremities are doing something usually at different times, and that's kind of what these are like. But if you don't know what you're doing in these, if you were to get in it and start it up and try to take off, I promise you would crash. Because that thing will, as soon as you pull up and get it just off the ground, it's going to start spinning on you and you wouldn't be able to stop it. So it's just time, spend time doing it. It took me probably flight hours, about 7 to 10 hours to learn how to control it where it wouldn't rotate on me when I was in flight school. And that's part of it. But you learn to handle it. It's fun, though.
Freshman? Oh, so that pilot had a lot going on already. You have a lot with your feet, trying to change the tail, both hands, and then now he has this large goose down there. But he was able to get it landed and get everything secured, but could have been a fatal accident for sure. But he was experienced, and we have great teachers as pilots also, so we appreciate that. You guys think of any more questions for us? Is this the last group, the freshmen coming down? Great. Freshmen! I'll just kind of wrap it up with this microphone, but we'll still be out here by the aircraft to answer questions if you guys come down and you want to ask. I've been a Brave fan since I was a little kid, so I really appreciate you all coming out and listening to us and hearing us give our spiel. I hope you all are inspired by it to, if you want to become a pilot or a med crew member, that you follow through with that. I also want to thank all the administrators, Mr. Parrish, for setting all this up with us. Also, our program director was here on the ground as well, Scott Moore. He came down earlier to try and make sure that we had a safe LZ. So just want to tell you all thank you so much.
Attention, let me have your attention. 2 o'clock. So when you leave here, go use the restroom, and then make your way back to the gym for the hypnotist. So you got about 25, 30 minutes, then we need you back towards the gym.
Angel! Welcome. Good.
I've learned Kiowa words and try to tell him, and then he'd listen to me. I'm sure he was kind of like, that's not quite right.
But you being cute, he accepted it, so. Perfect. Thank y'all so much. And Miss Pack, I really want a picture of you. With and Cheyenne wants it.
I had crushed my eye.
Perfect. Thank y'all.
You've seen it.
I'll email it to you. Thank you. Y'all did a fabulous job. It's really enjoyed it. Now, this is still unlatched.
Yeah. So you really do have to watch those a lot more than the...
Cheyenne,
Yes.
this is Miss Dobson. Babette, do you remember her?
Oh, yeah.
Gosh, nice. Today was fantastic.
Wasn't it?
Cold, and then I had brought my jacket, and then I was like, oh, it's kind of hot out here now.
Oh, it's nice. And y'all did a great job.
I'm not talking about the day, I'm talking about your presentation and everything you had to say.
Nothing?